Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistic professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides. That's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I built to predict various outcomes is named Sideline. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, where we are going to cover select college basketball games scheduled to be played on Friday, December 30th, 2022. You should here check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.picksprofessor.com/new for some explanations, goals, full recommendations on wager scaling, where to find additional picks, and community rules. Always remember, there are no locks in gambling. So what Sideline provides are loves, likes, and leans in its A, B, and C grades to indicate its confidence level on picks. Again, this episode only covers a select set of picks. The A-grade plays are usually a solid group of picks. There are plays of the day that can be found on the website and Patreon, and additional picks given out exclusively to the Discord chat. The results of the totality of these recommended picks can be found both on Betstamp and in the Google Sheet. All those links in the show description. That Google Sheet also contains the full set of projections and picks on every single game. And for early access to those picks and projections to take advantage of early mispriced lines, see Patreon. That links in the crawler below and also in the show description. It's also where you can access that Discord chat, which in addition to those exclusive picks I mentioned earlier, is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games, along with some general fun. As always, take what you like and leave the rest. Lastly, please understand the good and bad variance will occur. So as much as we'd like to see will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, we are recording this immediately after the travesty that was the Syracuse-Minnesota football game. And I know this is a basketball show, but I feel like that's like a black cloud over me right now. Losing the side of the total on a 4th and 9 scramble with 2 minutes to go really puts a damper on your Thursday, you know?
Yeah, it does. And I might be bothered if we weren't like 22-6 or something ridiculous. I don't even know what the numbers are. 22-12, 22-9. I don't know. We had one push in there as well. If we weren't doing so well the rest of bowl season, I would probably care. But to be honest with you, I'm having a hard time caring. We've done so well. Otherwise, we were bound to have one bad break go against us.
That's fair. We were 16-4-1 on sides entering that game. So, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Absolutely not wrong. But it still feels a little bit like, man, I feel like you should have at least had one of those, if not both of those. And, that's the fun of gambling is when sometimes that stuff goes your way and you're like, I had no business winning that. And then sometimes it doesn't. And it's like we always talk about with the good and bad variance. It's all over the map sometimes. That's why I always tell people, it's all about the long run, not about one day, not about one game, right? Because you gotta look big picture wise. It's hard sometimes. It's hard to look big picture when you have something like that, go against you. But you're right. Big picture wise, college football's gone pretty well. You've done really well here on the college basketball picks. I'm sure the people are excited to have you back on. I think of the three of us, you're leading the pack right now in your record. So no pressure.
In due time. A good statistician told me sometimes something about regression to the mean. I don't know, all of those mathematical terms that could probably say this can't sustain itself. But there is a reason my bio on the website says model whisperer, and it's not because of college football. It's because more of college basketball, and I spend a lot more time watching the model than I do actual basketball games. And so I do feel like I have a little bit of insight into where the model's doing well, where it's not doing well, and hopefully that's coming through in my picks.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you nailed it. And regression to the mean, right? A concept that is often misunderstood by people. People think regression to the mean means everything trends to 500. Regression to the mean is a concept that means everything will trend, that going forward, you will perform at your true talent level. And if you've been overperforming, that means that you will come back to earth. It doesn't mean you're due to have bad picks. It just means that going forward, you will perform at your talent level. And that in the end, that's where it'll pay out. Your regression to the mean might be, 55%. Like you said, model whisper right here. I've always noticed that you have insights on the model that I don't even have, and I'm the one who built the dang thing. So I do think your insight is very valuable to us here.
Yeah, I'm 61.9% right now. That's not going to hold up, people. So if I end the season at like 55% or something like that, I will be ecstatic.
You're right. 62% probably not going to hold up. But hey, again, if your true mean is 55% and you regress towards that, I don't think anybody here would complain. We've got 7 games to talk about here today, 8 picks for you. But before we get to that, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you'll miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content. this channel provides. I've already mentioned the Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits to be found over there above and beyond what we do here. $3 per month get you full access to all the plays of the day. For another $2 a month, access to that Discord chat group. And for $5 more a month, you get ad-free shows delivered to you earlier than the general public and immediate access to all the picks. Go to www.patreon.com/picks with the professor for more details. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. Let's get to it. All lines courtesy of Bet Online. Sign up link in the show description. And current at the time of this recording on Thursday afternoon. Shifting things up a little bit here, not a collaborative play, just what I'm going to call here the professor's A-plus play of the day. My favorite play of all of them. Got a lot of day games here on your Friday. This is a day that I think a lot of people will have off from work. Hopefully you viewer are among them, or if not, you can keep your eye on some of the day games. There's a few good ones and a few that we think you can make some money on. I'm going to highlight Bucknell -5.5 at Holy Cross here. Bucknell, I think, is just a much better team. They are on the road. Model's done pretty well pegging these two teams pretty spot on for the most part. Model says it should be Bucknell -7. I don't see Holy Cross having a large home court advantage in this situation. Bucknell's just a much better team. I think they can get it done. And we talk about all the time laying numbers. Less than 6, less than 7. 6, 7, 8 is a good spot for this one to land given late game fouling situations. And that's in the event Bucknell doesn't just run away with it. And given that they are not a good team, but still much better than Holy Cross, they could just run away with it, and then we don't have to worry about it. But that late fouls possibility getting us to 6, 7, 8, something like that makes us a great number to invest in. So I'm going to lay the 5.5 as my favorite play of the day here with Bucknell.
I like that play there. The past month, Bucknell has played 3 teams that you could probably say are as bad as Holy Cross is. St. Francis, Pennsylvania, which they won by 24. New Jersey Institute of Technology, I'm going to say, won that one by
probably.
6. And then they beat Merrimack by 6. I would say Merrimack's a bad team, but the way that they play basketball, those low scoring games, going to make it harder to get outside of a larger number like that. So I would say Holy Cross isn't going to exactly play the same type of game that Merrimack is. So I think that's a good pick. When Bucknell has played really bad teams the past month, they've put them away pretty handily.
Yeah, Bucknell's defense, not anything to write home about, but Holy Cross isn't the offense to take advantage of that, which is kind of like what you were saying there. When they play a bad team, that bad defense doesn't really – what's the opposite of shine? Bad defense doesn't really – you don't really see it because it's not evidence when you play a bad offense. That's what Holy Cross has. So a lot of good reasons there for Bucknell to win this one handily on the road. In the afternoon games, make sure you get your money on that one early. And then we're going to flip over and talk about the Cousins A-plus play of the day. Cousin Jared, your favorite of the A-grade plays. Only about 10-ish or so of them at this point, but the one that you like the most, 6 p.m. Central, Southeastern, I don't know, Louisiana, plus 14.5 at Vanderbilt. We faded Vanderbilt with a big number, I remember previously, and got a winner off of that one. We've backed Southeastern Louisiana 7 times and have gone 5-2 doing so. They've been fairly good to us for the most part. The model says this should be Vanderbilt by 11.5, so a 3-point discrepancy there is usually pretty good investing. Cousin Jared, why is this your favorite play of the day here, grabbing all the points with Southeast Louisiana?
This is my favorite play because Vanderbilt has won a grand total of 1 game this season by 15 points or more. That was against Morehead State. And the thing was, Morehead State in that game only scored 43 points. I can promise you Southeastern Louisiana is going to score more than 43 points. They're going to score more than 50 points. They're probably going to score more than 60 points. And if they score more than 60 points, even if they play at a high tempo and Vanderbilt is able to, get up and down the court and put up some points themselves, I just haven't seen anything from Vanderbilt this season that's going to make me think that they're going to be able to just blow Southeastern Louisiana out by 20. I mean, you're telling me that Vanderbilt would have to score like 80 points or 85 points in that scenario. And just skimming their schedule, I think Vanderbilt has scored 80 points, a grand total of 0 times in non-overtime games this season. So I just think that Southeastern Louisiana is going to put up too many points to get outside this number. Vanderbilt's probably going to win, but I think it's going to be more like by 9, more than 14.5.
Yeah, some great points there. The model says about 78 to 66, which is kind of what you were saying, that Southeastern Louisiana should get into the 60s handily, and that Vanderbilt's going to struggle to get to 80. And so as long as Vanderbilt doesn't get to 80, Southeastern Louisiana gets into the 60s, we got a really good shot at picking up the victory here. So that's your favorite play of the day, which takes us to the best of the rest. So I capitalized the best of all the rest of the picks. Again, a lot of them on the board, not as many as usual with a smaller slate here on Friday, but at least this Friday doesn't have like 6 games. I feel like some of those Fridays have like 6, 7 games or something. It's really slim pickings. We at least have a handful of games here to choose among. Cousin Jared, you like this one as the next best of all of the A plays. Buffalo getting 15.5 points at Michigan State. Model says it should be in the low 13s. Michigan State, we've backed them 7 times this year, gone 1-6. Backing Michigan State has not been a profitable venture. Faded Buffalo 4 times, gone 0-4. So I'm really glad the model flipped on this one because it's been kind of picking Michigan State against Buffalo in these types of scenarios for these teams, and it has not done well. So the model is grabbing all of these points with Buffalo against Michigan State, and what might be a sleepy, we got all these non-conference games here right before kind of intermixed in with some of these conference games. Cousin Jared, why is this the next best or the best of the rest of the A plays in your book?
So Michigan State, just kind of meh by Michigan State standards this year. Buffalo is, they're going to score and give up quite a few points. The game's probably going to be up and down, especially by Michigan State standards in this one. What I would say here is I see this game playing out 2 ways. Buffalo wants to get up and down the court. Michigan State could do what they did against Gonzaga and just kind of crush and smother Gonzaga in a way that Gonzaga very few times this season has kind of been, covered up on the defensive side. Michigan State could do that, and this game could end up like, 70-58. Buffalo just plays so quickly and so fast, and they're pretty good offensively. I just don't think they're going to score less than about 55 points or so. And so even if Michigan State really puts the brakes on them, I think they're going to score enough points to cover the 15.5. Conversely, if Michigan State decides they want to go up and down in this game, that's going to play exactly into Buffalo's hands. That's kind of what Buffalo does best. So the way that you lose this one is Michigan State scores 85 points and, Buffalo only ends up at 68 or something like that. But I feel like the number of times that happens is fairly slim. So I think either way Michigan State decides to go with this game, I think one's going to keep it low scoring. 15.5 is going to be a lot of points, or it gets high scoring, and that's the kind of game that Buffalo wants to play. And it's going to be harder for them to get outside of that number.
Yeah, it's a great way to break it down there. I think I said the same thing about a game previously. Honestly, I don't remember if that game won or not, but it is nice when you break a game down like that and you go, well, I know the one team wants to do this and the other team wants to do this. And kind of either way it goes, I kind of like my edge here because like you said, if it does slow down, 15.5 is a lot of points. And if it speeds up, Buffalo is perfectly content doing that and should have enough success offensively to hang around and, like you said, lose by 10 or 12 or something like that. Unlikely that they pull the upset, but like I said, you definitely also wonder about Michigan State and how motivated they are to go out there and give 100% with conference play right around the corner. Maybe they show up, play well, you never really know. And again, so many of these games are just decided by who hits the 3 ball right. Of the 7 games you're talking about, probably 2 or 3 of them are going to be one team hits all the threes, the other team doesn't. It doesn't really matter how you handicap it. One side's going to hit, one's not, and you just never know, right? But it's the other games where that doesn't happen that you're looking at. So assuming that doesn't happen, there's a lot of ways this goes where Buffalo gets the win. So it's your next best of all the A plays, which takes us to the cousin on a limb, a game the model does not have an A grade on. I'm not going to say cheating here, cousin Jared, but just as a reminder, people, those early access to the lines on Patreon, the people who have them, they've given their testimonials on Discord and talked about how valuable they are. Because you've talked about it all the time, how much, and obviously as you part of this this platform, you get all of that, as well. Yeah. And you've talked about how helpful that is. Western Michigan, just you got at a slightly better number, and you got at a number earlier on that would have been an A grade play. It's come down a little bit because people are backing Western Michigan. You still think it's valuable? I am curious where you say maybe you're a little bit less into it. But again, if you're able to get this in the opener, it was even higher than this. But you're going to take Western Michigan. You're still going to take them here at plus 21.5 at Wisconsin. The model says it should be about 20. The model's backed Wisconsin 5 times and gone 5-0, but doesn't think that we should be backing him here. For the most part, it's been pretty accurate with both of these teams. What I noticed on this one is the total on this one's 127. So we're just not expecting a lot of points. And kind of talked about in the last game, if it's a low scoring game, 21.5 is a lot of points, especially with a team that might be a little disinterested, not really sure if it feels like bowl season, but we do all those bowl previews. We talked about that a lot, right? Not sure if the team shows up. So grab points because if the better team doesn't show up because they're just not motivated to be there. And that's what you have here on the holidays. Seen a lot of these home teams lose bye games and or just look lackluster especially with conference play just looming right around the corner. Because, Jared, you like this plus 21.5 here with Western Michigan. Tell us more.
Okay, so to answer your question first, I think at like 20 points is the point where I wouldn't be interested in Western Michigan anymore. And to your point that you just made, Wisconsin, this is their first game since December 15th. Their last game was canceled. This is obviously the weird game kind of sandwich between, and this is the weird game sandwich between Christmas and New Year. So yeah, I'm like you. Who really wants to, if you're these student athletes or whatever, you got the holidays coming up and everything, who really wants to be out there playing this game against Western Michigan? If you're Wisconsin, probably not very many of them. My first thing on this was exactly what you said. Total of 127, 21.5 points is going to go a long way in a game that might be that low scoring. But more specifically, diving in on the teams, Wisconsin, I mean, we just kind of know what type of game Wisconsin plays. And in my opinion, we've had enough of the college basketball season at this point where you can, I don't want to say discount what happened those first couple of weeks, but you definitely have a much better idea of who the teams are at this point than you did when the season first started. Wisconsin hasn't covered a number like this since the first game of the season. You got to go all the way back to November 7th, the first game where they would have covered a number this large. No other game has really come close. They've been winning games, but they haven't been blowing teams out. Again, it's just not kind of the style of game that they want to play. If you go over and look at Western Michigan, guys, Western Michigan's not good. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that they're going to cover this because they are an underrated team. That's not necessarily the case. But they've played a couple of big name teams on the road this season. They played Iowa State. They lost that game by 16. They played Dayton, which honestly, who can forget that just staggering battle for Atlantis game between Wisconsin and Dayton over Thanksgiving?
I feel like that game was like 43-39 or something stupid.
I think it got to like 49-50 in overtime, I think. So anyway, Western Michigan lost to Dayton by 20 points. So they've played some good teams on the road, and they still would have stayed inside this 21.5 number. So again, I think this is a combination of just the type of game that Wisconsin wants to play, doesn't lend itself to blowing teams out. And Western Michigan is not good, but they're like decent enough to lose by 20 or less. So I think getting 21.5 points in a game like this is pretty valuable.
I will say this is one of the weird games where if you're watching it, you are a little bit maybe more concerned about the backups playing than the starters, because when we talk about who's motivated to play, I feel like the starters are probably not as motivated in a situation like this. But if the backups come in, those are the guys who are probably motivated to play all the time because they never get to play, right? So this is almost more one of those where if the backups come in, I actually might get a little bit nervous. Rather the starters just kind of like sleepwalk through this in Wisconsin by 14 and never really get out there, right? You know, we don't want those. We got to avoid those walk-ons just jacking up 3-pointers up 20 with 15 seconds left just because they can, right? As long as we avoid that scenario, right, we at least have a better chance to pull it out. Yep. And that'll take us to the daily double-double, a game where we like a side and a total. I'm going to give you one because Jared's going to give you the other one. You can take both. You can take one. You can take neither. You can parlay them together, whatever you want to do. But we think there's a lot of good angles for the 6 p.m. Central North Alabama at Jacksonville State game. We're going to go over 138, and we're going to grab the 7 points with North Alabama. I've got the side play for you here. The model says it should only be 6. Getting 7 is about as low as I want to go. We already locked in 7.5 as an A-grade play earlier in the day. No idea where the number will go, but 7 is about the furthest I want to go down, because we always talk about if you're grabbing points, grabbing a number like that at least gives you a fighting shot if they're going to not foul at that point, which is good. With regards to how these teams have performed, again, I always talk about the model being slow to react. It's not going to try to overreact because it knows that if it does that, I've built it that way. Because if not, we end up just chasing our tail if we just overreact to every good and bad performance. But North Alabama has actually overperformed model expectations by 7.6 points per game, and Jacksonville State has underperformed model expectations by 4.8 points per game. So if I were to turn up the let's react a little bit stronger slider in the model, which doesn't actually exist, I'm talking metaphorically, the model would say that this is probably only supposed to be Jacksonville State -4 or 5, something like that. I think 7 is just too many, so I'm going to grab North Alabama +7, because Jared, you're going to give us the total. You're going over that 138. Model says 143. Tell us more.
I don't know if there's one sentence I have said all season on the college basketball show that's been more persuasive than the one that I'm about to say. North Alabama gave up 76 points to Mississippi Valley State.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't know what else you need to say. Like, you can run through North Alabama's schedule and just look at the opponent's scores: 76, 74, 89, 80, 87, 75, 63 against Alabama State, which is Alabama State the worst team in college basketball? They've got to be really close if they're not the worst.
I don't think they're the worst. I think they're bottom 10, but maybe bottom 15, but they're not in the bottom 5 for sure.
Okay, well, my scaling's off. I'm used to operating with 131 teams, not 3,000 or approximately how many there are in college.
This is true. I mean, you're forgetting about Lamar and Hartford and IUPUI, Green Bay.
Yeah, Hartford, right? Hartford, pretty bad. Yeah.
LIU, pretty bad, right? LIU, the earliest afternoon having a lead and then blowing that one and never really, being, not being able to hold the lead there. So
yeah. Well, anyway, moral of the story is North Alabama defense questionable at best, and so I think this one easily goes over 138.
Yep, model predicts 74.5 to 68.5. So model thinks Jacksonville State will get up into the 70s, like you mentioned, and then North Alabama getting near 70 can get us both, hopefully the cover and the over in that one. And speaking of totals, we're going to go to the total of the day. This is, of all the totals, the one that jumped out to me the most. And again, not to be a broken record, but if you have access to those early projections, you would have loved this total, would have already jumped on it at a better number. It's opened up around 139, and it hung at 139 for a little while, depending on where you're shopping around it. But 139, just way too low. The model thinks it should be about 146. Still good value at 141, still a number I'm comfortable going over, but about 142 might be about as high as I want to go. The reason I say that, you just never really know. Some of these totals are missed by 20 points, right? But there's a lot of these that do come down to like 1 or 2 points within the total. And so every point matters. Always shop around, but I still like going over 141. In this one, you've got two teams that, with regards to the total number of points scored, the model's been pretty spot on with both Siena and Quinnipiac, and again, predicts 146. The model thinks this game will be about 75 to 71. It thinks it should be a tight contest, and that also gives us extra possibility for late fouls, shenanigans like that, and or overtime in order to get us over. So we've got multiple avenues to win this in a game where both teams are pretty average, but the worst unit on the court is probably Siena's defense. And both these teams, Siena plays at a pretty average pace, but Quinnipiac plays pretty fast. So you've got average everything, and then a couple of little factors that point to higher scoring than average. The average game has about 140 points in it. And so I don't really see why this is around 140. I think this number should be set around 143, 144, 145 maybe. And again, model says 146. So something like 141 gives us a lot of value and a lot of wiggle room here to go over. So I like the over there. Cousin Jared, I feel like maybe your analysis, and maybe you can give the readers or the listeners another doozy here of your patented Cousin Jared analysis.
Yeah, these are two teams that are playing basketball and questionable defenses and potentially a higher than average pace from Quinnipiac. There you go.
There you go. All right, that takes us to our must-see TV game of the day. It's an early one, so make sure you get your money in on this one quick. Hopefully you're watching this either the night before, evening before, or at least early in the morning here on Friday, 11 a.m. Central, North Carolina at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's getting 5.5 points at home, and the model's got an A grade. They're backing Pitt, getting 5.5. Pittsburgh has been one of the teams that's actually overperformed the model expectations the most of any team this season. It's very high up there on that list. The model's been pretty spot on with North Carolina. The model's been skeptical of them all season, thought they were good, not great, not number one worthy. So the model's been pretty spot on with North Carolina. But again, just really underestimated just how good this Pittsburgh team is. Pittsburgh's definitely going in the right direction. They're 9-4 against the number here, and getting 5.5 at home just seems like too much. They're not the better team by any stretch of the imagination. Their offense lags a little bit behind North Carolina's. Their defense lags a little bit behind North Carolina's, but being at home should give them enough to hang around in this one. And then we just got to hope that they can lose by 5 or less. A lot of ways North Carolina wins this game, but doesn't cover. We've seen North Carolina a lot this year in these situations win games by low numbers. So hopefully we can repeat that scenario. Again, model gives an A grade to Pitt at 5.5. And so we're going to back that in our must-see TV game of the day. Cousin Jenna, what do you think?
So I think you just said that Pitt was 9-4 against the number. Did I hear that right? Well, I can promise you two of those games early in the season, they lost to Michigan by 31 points and they lost to West Virginia by like 25. So I promise you they didn't cover those two games. So it's more like they're like 9-2 or so against the number in the last 11 games. So they've been playing really well. I also like the type of game that I think North Carolina is going to want to play here. I like what I've seen from Pitt in the past month plus, playing teams like it up and down the court. They held Fairleigh Dickinson to 61 points, which I think we talked about earlier this season. Fairleigh Dickinson, one of the worst defenses in all of college basketball, but also a pretty decent offense.
And they play really fast. So anytime you're holding them down is pretty impressive, just because they get points via volume of shot attempts. It's not like that's great quality shot attempts necessarily, but they get up so many shots. They score points because they're gonna, law of large numbers. They're gonna eventually get some in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then they beat North Carolina State by 8 points, and then beat Syracuse by 2 points there, all in higher scoring games, which you would think is what this game would turn into. So yeah, definitely like what you've seen from Pitt lately. Again, 9-2 against the number in their last 11. It's kind of like we said last week with Idaho. Just kind of got to ride the hot hand until it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Pittsburgh's a team we faded early on, and that worked for a couple of those games, and then it stopped working because they just been playing really well. They finally gotten healthy, and so we kind of knew it would be slow, which is why we faded them, and they kind of came together a little bit quicker than the model really expected them to. But yeah, they've been playing really well. Model expects about 150 points in this game. So like you said, should be up and down, should be entertaining, a lot of points. Two decent teams. I mean, North Carolina obviously should make the tournament. Pitt right now probably more on the outside looking in, but the way they've played lately, Pitt could make things interesting if they continue to play at that level. They've got all the games in front of them to win in order to make the tournament. So definitely a game worth watching if you're able to here at 11 a.m. Central. We're going to grab the points with Pitt. They might pull out the upset, or if not, hopefully they can at least keep it close and lose by 1-5. And that's the 7 games, 8 picks that we've got for you on the show. Again, a lot more picks out there on the Patreon, on Plays of the Day, on the website. We got picks everywhere. I always recommend playing more than less. Don't play anything you don't like, but don't not play something if you like it. Just split your units a little bit smaller and play more things. It kind of reduces that good and bad variance we talk about. It's always fun when we have good variance, but bad variance always sucks. Cousin Jared, any parting words for people before they head into their Friday college basketball betting?
Reminder to go out and watch the college football show. Got a lot of college football games coming up on Friday, and then we've got the playoff semifinals on Saturday. Then we'll have a new show for you next week covering the last handful of bowl games and the national championship games. So as college basketball season is getting rolling, we're winding down on college football season. Bowl games we've done, just amazing so far. So again, regression to the mean there, but we've been doing really well. So definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, I would assume that we probably aren't going to continue to hit at 80% for the rest of bowl season. But hey, if we do, that would be really awesome.
That would. We would tell our kids about that. If we could
have a whole bowl season of 80% on sides, that would be pretty impressive. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. Hopefully we keep that going. So some last minute college football stuff to happen before that season wraps up. And yeah, the rest is on to college basketball. Pretty soon we'll be back to baseball. And I know that's what if you weren't around for last baseball season, if you weren't around for the baseball season before that, we've had some really good baseball seasons here. It's been a lot of fun. So I think that's what everyone's either looking forward to, or if you're not, you need to start looking forward to it. Now that we're into the new year, we're only about 3 months away.
Yeah. And we can say all this because Jake's not here.
Exactly right. If Jake was here, he'd be cursing under our breath, talking about how this is the greatest time of the year with college basketball. And you and I are sitting here like, yeah, this is cool, but man, just wait till baseball. Baseball's fun.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can control us worth betting content we provide on this channel. It's dropped right into your feed. Be back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting content. Don't forget to check out the football episodes as well, like Cousin Jared mentioned. And until we see you again, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money